right, and we're live. Welcome to the Overheard podcast, recorded live in Banff. My name is Daniel Rudel. With me always is my co-host.
We got Maddie Rage. I'm not on cam yet, but I'm here. Don't worry. I'm here in the background. You can see my foot.
Maddie Rage is here with us today for our 29th episode. We're very happy to be sitting down with Jiwan Baxter and Amal Al-Homsi.
Let's go.
For those that don't know, founding members of Oesa Arts, a nonprofit that promotes arts, community, and sobriety in the Bow Valley.
Let's go.
Before we get into a little more of a formal introduction, how's your week been?
It's fantastic.
So good.
Good stuff. What have you guys been up to?
It's so funny. Once there's a mic in front of my face, I forget how to talk.
It gets better. I can guarantee it gets better.
We've been good. We recorded 2 sessions with 2 amazing musicians, the Jakes.
Who are now part of the Oesa music team. So we're very lucky to have all of their expertise and skill.
Shout out to Jakes. You know one of them, actually. Jake Paris.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Big
He
shout
says
out.
hi.
Right on. Hey, what's up? Maybe we'll have to have him on for his own episode. We can talk a little bit about that. What have you been up to this week, Matt? What have you been saying?
Oof.
Working a bit?
Beside punching mic stands over here, I've just been hanging out. Actually, busy DJ week. I got I had a set last night. I thought I had one tonight, but I don't, which is bonus. Then I have technically a live guitar set in VR, which will be fun because I get to play guitar blindfolded. And then right after that, I have to go to a club and DJ at another event. So busy week for me, but other than that, I got to go to work tomorrow. So you know
What's
how
your
that goes.
DJ name?
In VR chat,
Oh.
it is DJ Omen 666.
Yeah, we did an interview with...
Yeah, we actually we did an interview with 2 of my buddies. One of them is a club owner. Another one is really famous DJ in VR, in the VR scene. And we actually had them in VR. So they were up side by side with us, and they were in VR and full
I
body.
remember seeing
Yeah,
that.
like having the interview.
It was a pretty mind-blowing experience for me as being a non-technological kind of guy, for sure. Amal, don't be shy to pull that mic up a bit closer into you. Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
go.
Get intimate.
There you go. Yeah, don't be shy. Don't be shy.
Yeah.
We'll move into a little bit of an introduction here. We have some intro kind of bio stuff. We're going to start with you, Jiwan. Jiwan Baxter is a singer and multi-instrumentalist from southwestern Ontario. Classically trained violinist, she combines lyrical overtones of musical theater and Western classical tradition with the rhythmic and cultural edge of the folk revival era in her singing. A budding songwriter, her writings draw inspiration from injustice and hierarchies in our current affairs. In her performances, she seeks integration of space, audience, and music, where love and appreciation of art can overcome modern-day aestheticism and commerciality.
Jesus. You should ask her about
That
that.
was
an awesome bio.
That was, you nailed it, buddy.
Yeah,
He said,
that's
he
a
said he was
mouthful.
working on it. He said he was working
I was
on
like,
it. He's like,
honestly,
oh, yeah.
I read this 100 times this week.
Wow. I should have asked you to write my bio for me. Jeez.
Next time.
You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm from Stratford, Ontario.
Oh, no doubt. I grew up in Chatham.
Oh, not too far away.
Yeah.
So it's similar to Banff in the sense that it's a tourist zone.
Big time.
We're known for our Shakespeare Festival, but we also have musicals that run throughout the season, a couple of contemporary theater pieces. So, yeah, I'm definitely used to that saturation of tourists, transients a little bit, but it is a little bit more stable in terms of the population.
For sure.
We have more of an older, retired
Yeah,
group
good
of
point.
people who live there.
Good point. It is nuts in the summer, though. Like, when you go down for the festival, it's like Banff. It's like insane downtown. It's wild, but it's a sick spot. What brought you out here?
Just kind of like on a fluke. I had finished my first year of university, and it was during COVID. So it was a rough time for us all.
Very strange experience doing or
Yeah.
coming out of schooling during COVID times, definitely.
And final exams had finished, and my friend said, well, my cousin lives out in Banff, who's actually Kev, is the cousin of my friend who decided to come out here with me. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, no,
Yeah,
that's
so we
awesome.
stayed with him for a little while.
What a small world.
I
hey?
know.
Like, Banff that's just so Banff right there.
I know.
Sure.
And so we decided to move, and within that week, we were out here July 1st, 2022.
Amazing.
So, yeah, it was a great year.
Sounds like a very transitional year for sure in that sense. Before we dive more into yourself, we'll dive a little bit into Amal. Amal is a Syrian writer, artist, and environmental educator. His short stories and art are featured in magazines and galleries across North America. He also holds the position of editor-in-chief at Oesa magazine. His next book is due in October with Rocky Mountain Books.
Mhm.
What's your
Jeez.
story? How did you get to Banff, Amal?
Just put him on blast. What's your story?
Yeah,
what is your
well, that's
story?
why we're here. We're here to dive into why we're here, how we got here.
For sure. I actually didn't know Banff existed before coming here.
Nice.
But
Cool.
remember when I told you I found a book that I wrote when I like a journal that I wrote when I was 14,
Oh yeah.
and on it was like my dream places to go to, and Banff was there, which is crazy to me that
You
I
thi-
thought about
You
Banff.
just totally like forgot about it.
I forgot about it later. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was living in North Carolina before coming here, and
Oh,
then
cool.
yeah, I
Nice.
love North Carolina. But then Trump happened, so I had to, he canceled my visa, so I had to. Canada's just like, I guess we'll take you.
Oh geez, crazy.
Yeah,
Wild.
yeah. It was,
So
it
that's
was,
that's a crazy story.
it's interesting, and so I came to Canada. It wasn't the plan, and then my friend from Australia said, let's go see the country." So we were hitchhiking actually in a milk truck, and then the guy was just like, "You need to see this place," and so we came down, and it was Banff, and then
Cool.
I've never left ever since.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's
So
a
that was-
great story of
I
getting
was gonna
here.
say the end of that is very typical. The beginning of that
Yeah.
story is not typical at all. It's like, oh yeah, I ended up here and never left. It's like, well, all of us did that, but that's a wild way to
True.
get here, man. That's crazy.
Oh,
Wow.
thanks.
Congratulations on the book coming out, by the way. It's
Thanks.
a huge achievement. We'll touch on
Thanks.
that a little bit later.
Mhm.
Oesa Arts is what brings you guys together.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? What is Oesa Arts for those that don't know?
For sure. Oesa, well, the name Oesa comes from the lake Oesa by Lake O'Hara,
Cool.
which I'll touch on that a bit, why it was named so. And then the sign of it is a deliatur, which is, I guess I should start about the mission. Our mission is arts. It's like a trinity of some sort. It's arts, community, through the medium of sobriety. And I think if we weren't in the context of Banff, we would have not have focused on sobriety, but
For
because,
sure.
Banff is
doubt.
Banff.
No doubt.
And so our goal is to support artists in the valley and connect them with community and venues, and then offer sober events, because that's, I think, is very difficult in Banff. Would you add to that?
Yeah, I
Or-
would agree with you there. That
Yeah.
sober events are not
Man.
on the agenda.
Dan knows. Yeah,
For
I don't
sure.
even go to drunk events anymore. So. And I like beer, so I don't.
Yeah, there's like a transitional time, like for myself and my
Mm.
sobriety. Well, I wouldn't call it sobriety, my non-drinking
Oh.
journey. I've been off alcohol for 4 years. I used to
Yeah.
be,
Wow,
I used to drink
congratulations.
every
Yeah.
single day, doing drugs, consuming alcohol like nonstop. I have a theory of it because I don't like alcohol. Some people can handle it. I feel like
Mhm.
you have a finite amount of drinks that you can have in your
Mhm.
lifetime. I feel like I just had them all in my 20s. You know what I mean? So I'm like,
Yeah.
definitely more harm than good. I don't want to sit here and talk good about boozing it up, but some people can handle it, some people can't.
Fair enough. And did that start in Banff, you'd say?
I
Or-
started before I got to Banff.
Okay.
For sure. Long before I got to Banff. I think Banff just exacerbated it
Mhm.
to a point.
It
Of,
just enables it.
yeah,
Banff is an enabler.
for
Why?
sure.
Why do you think so? I'm interested.
I think I don't know. I think it's just a demographic and like the people that we have that come to Banff. Like it's just if I was 18 to 24 years old and I was on a work visa to another country and all I had to do was go get some mediocre job somewhere and party for 2 years, that's what I would do too, right? So when everybody kind of has that same mindset, I think that's kind of where some of it comes from, and it's just also it's like what's the saying? Your reputation precedes you.
Yeah, I
That's
don't
kind of
know.
like Banff is already known when you get here. Like if you know anything about it, people are like, "Oh, that's like the party town, man. It's crazy. Like watch your shit out there." It's just
I think the fact that
it's a little bit of everything. I think.
Mhm.
for a lot of people getting here at a young age as well, like it's maybe your
Yeah.
first time away from home,
Mm.
your first time kind of having that freedom.
Mm.
And a lot of events or stuff are always happening at bars after.
Mm.
I work in the restaurant industry, so after work, you're
Yeah.
having a beer with your pals around the bar or
Sure.
whatever. So it's just something that's very accepted,
Mm.
and that's like an easy snowball to
I
start
see.
going. You know what I'm saying?
You see, I used to blame, whatever comes my way. I'd be like, yeah, it's this fault. But then I realized historically, Banff is known for drinking. Like if you
Mhm.
see that we have Whiskey Creek, where people
Right.
used to go and drink whiskey. And
Right.
then
That's
just,
what I mean. It's people know that like that's what goes
Yeah.
on here. Like,
And like even like from the beginning of Banff, people came here to drink, which to me is crazy because if you go to other mountain towns, like especially in the States, there's like a distinctive culture
yeah,
to it. There's
yeah.
like you have music, you have people who are artists, you have people who love mountains, and yes, we do have that here. But then the majority of people here are just sort of like really into the nightlife, and I feel
Absolutely.
like people are kind of embarrassed to talk about that.
Maybe. Yeah.
I think it's just kind of becomes your identity, like it did for me, for
Mhm.
sure. Yeah, drinking culture in Banff is just, it's, yeah, like you said, it's just part of it. It kind of goes hand in hand. So the fact that you guys do sober events is super cool. I'm gonna have to come check those out.
Tonight.
Yeah, I know you guys are having one at the HI. I
We
was
do.
checking that out.
Mhm.
I was sharing those posts as well, Oesa Arts.
Thank-
So what
Thank
goes
you.
on at one of those events?
Sorry.
What's happening? It said there's vendors, there's open
Yeah.
mic.
So the history of the community. I feel like I'm talking. Do you want to say something?
No,
Okay.
go ahead.
The history of the community night like precedes Oesa. It's a long time ago. We met this guy. What's his name? I forgot.
Walter Odenthal.
Mhm.
His family has lived in the valley for a long time,
Mhm.
and I think that this tradition began in the 90s or ceased in the 90s. I'm not quite sure, but it was very popular
Mhm.
at that time. And he described that every month they had a community night that was super popular. Cars and vehicles would line up all the way up Tunnel Mountain Road
Mhm.
Okay,
to get to the
nice.
HI.
Yeah.
So it was the hoot of the month.
Nice.
And yeah, people would come and just like there would be someone who'd open with a half an hour set,
Mhm.
and then there'd be an open mic afterwards, and it would be hosted at the HI in the storm cellar.
Mhm.
Nice.
And it was just a great community activity.
Mhm. And so I met Remy, who's the manager of the HI right now. He's an amazing guy.
Cool.
And then I was like, "Do you want to bring it back?" And he was like, "Sure." And so we started doing it, and it's just an open mic for local artists to go and play. There's food, there's vendors, there's community. Anybody is
Cool.
welcome, all ages, and it happens every month.
Amazing. So if you
Mhm.
guys are free tonight, you got plenty of time after the live show to get yourself up to the HI.
Yeah, we're
Sure,
early
check out the
today.
community
We don't
night.
we don't get this luxury very often.
It feels later in the day, I feel, because
Yeah,
we're
we're so
recording so early.
yeah, we're so used to like it would like we wouldn't even start for another 2 hours, right? So it's
True.
Oh.
it's kind of nice that a little more fresh, you know?
I would say so.
Yeah.
So back to Oesa and what you guys do. You said your mission, the trinity of sobriety, community, and arts.
Mhm.
I saw that you're promoting artists as well. You give artists like a spot every month to record,
Yeah.
and you're promoting them through the Instagram, which I thought was really, really awesome as well for smaller artists if you're trying to get your name out there.
No doubt.
For sure. Yeah, it's a great opportunity. It's actually how I first became involved with Oesa.
Cool.
I was asked to do a session way
Oh,
back
yeah.
when.
Way back
way
when.
way back.
Way
Can
back.
I tell the story? So she came.
Oh no.
I didn't know who G1 was, and my friend heard her at an open mic, and he said, "You got to meet this girl. She sounds amazing." And then she purchased a guitar just for the session. She's never really played before, and she shows up and she kills it. And then when
Nice.
she's done, she's like, "Yeah, I've actually never played the guitar before." And I'm just like, "What?"
No way.
Yeah, this girl is crazy talented. Mhm.
I have a kind of weird story like that when I started playing cello because I kind of outgrew the violin and I just said,
Who's this guy
Screw
too?
That was my reaction. I went up to Matt this week and I'm like, okay, I've been diving into our next week's guest. Like, this is what they're into, like classically trained violinists. And he's like, oh yeah, like I'm a classically trained cellist. I was like, what? Like, I was blown
the
away.
things Dan doesn't know, but
Yeah.
so I stopped playing violin for a couple of years when I started playing guitar.
Mm.
And I wanted to get back into it. And just like by that point, you know, you hit puberty and your growth spurt. I'm just like, holy fuck, this thing's tiny, man. It's like, the hell? It never used to be this small. So I got my hands on a cello and just started doing that. So I was like, screw it, I'm just skipping everything. Got the sheet music for the prelude for the first suite and just went to town on it. I was like, played for like 6 months. I'm like, I'll go take some lessons, right? So I go down, first lesson. This lady's like, play me something, you know? So I start hammering it out and she just like looks at me. She's like, wait, who taught you how to play that? I'm like, me. She's like, how the hell do you do that? I was like, we just get the wherever the open string is on the staff, and it's just tones and semitones and accidentals. It's not that hard. She's like, that's fucked. I was like, excuse me? She's like, that's fucked. I'm like, okay. She's like, I got kids I've been teaching for like 11 years, still don't even know how to play that. was like,
Wow.
Well, I had like 5 years worth of violin maybe under my belt, but it's like realistically, like bowing's the only hard part. Like,
You make it
if you
sound
can
so
play
easy, man.
it, like,
right?
because I had played guitar for like, I played violin for 5 years. I did guitar for probably like 5-6 years in between that, right? So like, once your left hand is used to that, it's
That motion,
pretty much
yeah.
easy. And if you already know how to do this, which is the hard part, like you know how it is. Anytime you give someone that does not know how to use a bow, a bowed instrument, you'll hear some creative sound, like absolutely creative sounds. You're like, what the hell? I didn't know you could do that with it. Like,
Well, I actually got this crazy ad since we've been talking leading up to the show, right? Doing on the phone, I've been saying violinist and all this stuff. I got an ad for a product that was like a bow, but for a guitar.
I saw that too.
they're not
Yeah,
great. They're not
it's
good
crazy.
though.
That's so
Just
cool.
get
I
an
didn't think
just
it
get
would
an
be a good
Evo
idea.
and call it even.
It's
I've
pretty
even like
wild,
tried
though.
to use my cello bow on the and the strings just are not made for that. It's like not the same construction.
You guys should start a band, I think.
A band? Oh no, I have too
You and
many.
G1.
I have so many music projects right now. Oh my
He's
god.
the music project master.
Oh god.
So
Wow.
back to being a classically trained violinist. What does that mean for those that don't know out there? What does classically trained entail? Do you like go to school for being a violinist? Is that
Yeah.
or just trained
Well-
in classical music?
Sometimes. So I started playing the violin when I was 4. When you start out training classically, they recommend that you do it at a younger age,
Yeah.
just so that agility and dexterity can be built up and ingrained and drilled. But I studied under the Suzuki method. I don't know if you did.
No, I did the Royal Conservatory just because my mom was a piano and theory teacher. So
Oh yeah.
I thought
Well,
it
you
was a car.
you you graduate into the conservatory in more advanced levels, but Suzuki
okay.
really emphasizes technique, posture, just sort of like very like traditional pedagogy under like that Western classical genre.
Nice.
And it's the genre that dominated the Western world for centuries and kind of lays the groundwork for a lot of the music that we have now, jazz.
Wait, that's
blues.
so interesting. It's called Suzuki and it dominated the Western world?
No, it's a method within the Western classical tradition.
Ah,
I see.
It's a school of thought and a type of instruction.
Mhm.
Originated in Japan in like
Mhm.
the early 1900s, and it's the most popular, I think, for elementary learning.
Interesting.
Yeah.
cool. I don't know. Maybe I did, and then I just didn't remember. So I was like so young when I played violin. I think it was the same. I would have been like 5 or 6 maybe when I started.
So you've been playing for a
7
long
top.
time. You said 4?
Yeah, I stopped taking lessons privately when I was 17. So I haven't really played regularly in 5-6 years.
Okay.
So I've lost that muscle memory.
It
But
comes back. It comes back. Trust me.
I
I've
hope
done it
so.
before. Like I haven't played cello in like a year. Just like I sold the cheap one that I had out here, and my other one's back home. So just whatever. But still, you pick it up and you give it like 5-10 minutes, and you're just like, oh yeah, I'm ripping. I'm good. But I play
Yeah.
guitar also, right? Like you also play other
Mhm.
instruments, right? So
for sure. And
That-
I
that
still
helps.
play. It's not like I've given it up entirely.
yeah,
I played with several orchestras back home, and then also I pull out my violin every once in a while here. I
Nice.
was in a little trio with a few friends,
Cool.
and I did the fiddle. So it's it does come back, just that rigid.
you're just not studying for exams and crap like that. Those were fun. Sight reading exams.
Oh gosh.
I mean,
Oh,
it
yeah,
sounds
it's the-
like very intense as far as theory and like
Yeah,
you said even
It is
posture.
like it's crazy. Well, even like
That's-
when you go do your exams, like you have like a piece of music that you practice, and then you have a piece of music that you've never seen before, and they just put it in front of you and go play it,
Oh,
and you get scored on that, and it's like you have to know your shit. Like
Talk about
it's
dealing
like
with
it's-
pressure, huh?
It's easy to get a very low score.
Oh, big time! Like when you go for an RCM exam, it's like you either get like a 60 or you're getting like honors, high class honors, like you're like top like 10-15%, right? So it's like they'll fail you on anything too, and it's nuts. Like just how you hold your bow, like if you mess up or you drop your bow, or like it could be anything. You know what I mean? Like just-
Why? Or that's wild. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
not
Mhm.
why, but
Yeah.
But also
Crazy
why?
Yeah, why? Yeah. I don't know. It's just like
You always see, like, you
It's one
always
of
kind
those
of think
things,
of
like-
arts as like a not so rigid medium, and
Oh,
like,
That's why I love what I'm doing now.
yeah,
Yeah.
It allows for a lot more creativity, individuality. In like how I was taught in my training as a violinist was it's not about you. It's not about the artist. It's about that compositional intention. And so you
Right.
have to like fulfill that. And it's about that tradition that you're forwarding.
Mm.
Whereas with the music that I'm playing now, you can do whatever you want. You can sing however you
Right.
want.
Like, do you think the foundation of that is important? Because, like, to me nowadays, you got, like, I mean, not hating on anybody, but like you have these artists who really just like the idea of being an artist. You know, they like the idea of like wearing a hat and ordering a cappuccino and sitting at a coffee shop, you know, and pretending that they're like, I do art. But like, if you look at most great artists, they started from somewhere of like anger and frustration and classical training and
Hmm.
or like compulsion almost,
Yeah.
right? Like this has to get
Mhm.
out.
like
in
if
a
we look at
sense.
Van Gogh, like people often see Van Gogh as this like revolutionary in the art, but like people don't, or I don't know why, just people forget that what's his name? The guy who did the Japanese painting, it's like the famous one. I forgot his name, but Van Gogh took that painting and he painted it 1,000 times to master that brush stroke
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
before he started doing anything, you know. And so I feel like for me, like having a foundation in classical training is important for you to sprout out of that, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
it's-
big time. It helps a lot. Like even for me, like I'm a heavy metal guitarist and a cellist and a DJ. Like it's like it's weird, right? Like I kind of go like all ends of the spectrum, but like without that foundation, like to begin with, like I wouldn't have gotten anywhere near where I wanted to be on guitar, right? Like I think it would have took a lot more work for me to just pick up a guitar and play it without having that kind of background, right? Like
For sure.
it definitely helps, and it doesn't even matter what you're playing. Like it could be anything. It's like the same with the DJ decks. It's just that like dexterity, like she said, it's just the dexterity and that muscle memory, and just like being able to like move efficiently, like and precisely. You know what I mean? It's
Well, I think also the mindset that you mentioned about like putting together that or putting forward that tradition is like just that its own theory in itself. It made me think of recently hearing an interview with what's his name? Rick Rubin.
Mm.
oh yeah, okay,
And people were reacting to his theory in the sense that he's the only producer that says, don't worry about the audience. Like, worry about what comes out of you. And if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. It's just like, that seems like such a backwards theory to a lot of people that do art because obviously it's for the audience, right? And he's like, it's weird that I don't know, the both dichotomies are kind of true in music and both can be successful. It's like, where do you find yourself from one spectrum to the other, you know?
Yeah, it's very tricky.
It's kind of like the conservative versus the progressive, but then they both overlap and they both separate in many different ways. But I think everyone kind of shares a goal of wanting to find refuge and creativity in art or music. So
Yeah.
that's why Oesa is great, because we've banded together on art, which is such a beautiful communal thing.
nice.
Mhm.
For
Oh,
sure.
Sorry, maybe we should talk about our offerings then.
Yeah.
Please do. Please do. We're
Yeah,
getting,
yeah.
This happens all the time. We get off topic. We come back. Please tell us about your offerings.
Please
from
let me know
Oesa.
if I forget something. But what we have currently, and of course, like this is all a team effort. Like the town of Banff helps a lot. The POW Foundation for sure. And we're grateful for both of these organizations. But we have a gallery space at the Fenlands, which
Cool.
allows artists to show their art for free and sell it for free. We take
Amazing.
nothing out of that. We have studio spaces where you know how housing situation is in Banff. So artists are welcome to use the space. It's open twice a week.
Mhm.
To go and do whatever they want. They can drum, dance, juggle.
Cool.
So we have studio spaces. We have recording sessions. So if you're an artist and you don't have anything to show for your art, we record you for free
Amazing.
and we advertise that. What else do? We publish.
Oesa magazine.
Yeah. We have the farmers market, so we have the art tent and the music tent. Every week we try to have a new artist to sell their art,
Okay,
also free
cool.
of charge. And then the music tent, Renee has been very generous with that. Renee is the manager of the farmers market.
Amazing.
And he pays artists a fee to come and perform. It's like a form of an open mic. Everybody's welcome. We have community nights.
Mhm.
What else do we have? I think that's it.
Yeah.
Geez, you guys are busy. No doubt.
We try.
Do you have any free time?
We have a lot of free time, actually. It's kind of, I mean, I do.
hmm
I don't know if you do.
I have time.
This girl is busy. This girl
Yes,
is
some.
busy.
I have
Time.
sometimes. You know.
You always need to find some time during the day.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't work efficiently.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Like,
Mhm.
what, you can only stay focused for a certain amount of time. I forget. I don't know what it is. It's only like kids in school, they're meant to sit down and just
Mhm.
memorize stuff all day, where it's like,
Fair
I don't
enough.
know.
Have you guys read the story called Those Who Walk Away from Omelas? You know the story?
Mm-mm.
No.
Bruh,
No,
you should
never
read
heard.
it. After reading that, you will never waste time in your life. It's a story about, it's a short novel. It's about this utopia, I guess, where it's just perfect. Everybody there, they have the perfect time, the best time. But then there's this catch to it where every week they all have to go to a basement and beat up a minority kid. Like,
Oh my God.
you
What?
know?
Jesus.
Jeez.
And so every week they just go down there and they beat kids up, and then they go up to the surface and then they live their perfect life. And it's no pressure for you to stay there. You can, if you don't want to stay there, and that's why the story is called Those Who Walk Away from Omelas, you can just walk away,
Mhm.
right? And it's seen as like this perfect reflection of like what Western society is, because we make 4% of the world, yet we consume 60% of it.
Mhm.
And so for me, every time, because I know I am part of the society, I know I'm someone with a club in my hand that goes down, and maybe not, physically, but in a more metaphorical way. And so every time I sit there, like wasting my time, I'm just like, is this why I'm beating a kid for?
Wow. It's a
'Cause-
tough metaphor.
Yeah, no doubt.
I-
No doubt. Sorry to get deep on you there, Jan.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No apologies
we-
necessary. I feel like sometimes we got to get deep like that.
So
Great,
that was out of
great
nowhere.
story though, and great analogy.
It's not
for
my
sure.
story. Yeah, it's I forgot the girl who wrote the book, but yeah, it's fascinating because I think we forget that this is how we live. Really, I
It's
mean.
true.
But yeah, sorry. I'll take a step back here.
That's all good. We were gonna say we were gonna touch a little bit on the founding of Oesa. How did
Mm.
you come up with this? How did it begin?
For sure. So Oesa started 2 years ago. It really, I guess it started from like multiple things caused it to start. The first thing is I wrote a story about Lake Oesa, but I couldn't find a place to publish it.
Mhm.
And that was to me interesting because where I lived in the States, there was a lot of outlets for creatives. And it really was interesting that there's no place to publish here, no journals, no small magazines.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that was number one. Number two, I met this girl, and I don't think she knows this. Shout out Sarah Hicks. I hope you're listening to this. She's a phenomenal artist, and she was at the farmer's market. And she asked me to help her bring back her stuff. And then when I was doing that, it was her van, which I knew she lived in her van. And then she opened the door, and I saw like her paints next to her like toothpaste, and like where she has her pillows next to this desk made out of like rocks. And I was like, how on earth do you work and live here? And the van smelled like oils because she does oil art.
Yeah,
And that brought to my attention that people here need spaces to do art,
For sure.
and they desperately need outlets to do that. But then the more I talk to people, I think, can I go deep again? I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's what
please.
we're here for.
Yeah.
Are you guys familiar with Hannah Arendt? She wrote. She's a German philosopher, and she has this theory called the tyranny of none, where she talks about bureaucracy and how in societies that function out of bureaucracy, you go, for example, to someone who works in the government and you say, why do we have it this way? And they say, well, that's not me, that's my boss, my department. You go talk to the department, they say, well, that's not me, that's how we were directed by council. You talk to council, they're like, well, that's not me, that's the government. You talk to the government and so on, and then the government eventually will say, this is what the voters want.
Just the way it is. Yeah.
And then you
Like,
talk to the
back.
voters,
Yeah.
and they're like, well, this is what the government wants. And it's just this like endless cycle of who's taking the blame. And I feel like what's interesting about Canada that I noted, maybe I'm wrong, but the people, like not the government, the people are bureaucratic. And so nobody kind of is willing to do something like this. Is very rare to do something that you're not paid for,
For sure.
right?
Yeah.
When you tell something, somebody like, why did you didn't change that? Oh, it's not my job. I'm not getting paid to do that. Therefore, it's not my role to change it. And
Mhm.
I feel like they say it with such justification, right? But like me coming from a community-centered culture, everything is your job. It is absolutely your role to help everybody, and everybody's problems are your problems. You know.
Well, I think what you said
Makes
is
sense,
very,
yeah.
very present in the town right now, and we're
Mhm.
gonna touch a little bit on Ped Zone stuff later. But it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, everyone wants to be like I touched on this last show, where it's like more people voted in the Ped Zone than people voted for actual city council or for actual. It just seems like everyone just wants to pit the blame onto someone else, and then the city council is like, oh, well, no, the people voted for this. Exactly, it's the exact same
Mm-hmm.
kind of scenario that's playing out.
Well,
Which
Banff's got a weird dynamic with that anyway. It's just us being in the park and just where we are and what we're here for, right?
For
So
sure.
it's a totally different set of circumstances that most little towns don't have to deal with.
But the town has been actually great help. It is very rare to find a municipality where you can walk in and say, hey, I'm a nonprofit, or I am nobody and I need funding to start this project. And they actually have a designated person to help you with that.
yeah, that's what you were telling
That's
us
cool.
earlier. So that's something,
Nice.
yeah, I would
That's
probably look into a little bit more. Everyone's,
their-
we're very like
Mhm.
lighthearted with town of Banff. Like we realize the position they're in. It's not the
Mhm.
easiest place to manage the influx
Mhm.
of tourism as well as keeping the workforce happy or, you
Mhm.
know, content with the housing and all that stuff. Like that's, it's obviously it's a difficult place to be in. So as much as there is bad, there is a lot of good that comes with it as
For
well.
sure.
So we got to give
yeah.
town of Banff a big shout out when we can, of
Yes,
course.
there you go.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so Oesa started out of that, I guess. I thought, well, maybe we should start something. So it started really as this small thing, but I guess there was such a desperate need for art in the valley, and so it
For
just
sure.
snowballed. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm coughing.
Oh, I had one of those.
How dare
I had
you.
one of those earlier, huh, Dan?
A little different reason, but
Wait, I was dying.
but yeah, for space for artists, of course, like you're gonna get noise complaints if you're any type of artist trying to practice your craft in your apartment.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
not the easiest place to be an artist when you're living on top of each other. the
I
way that
use
we are.
headphones pretty much strictly when I'm DJing because, like, even like Chase doesn't want to listen to 5 hours of drum and bass while I sit here and practice, right? So yeah, I just chuck the cans on and just like I've got my half stack in my room. Like I've got
Yeah.
a 412 guitar amp in my room. Can't turn that on in here, man.
For
Even
sure.
these
Oh,
little
God,
speakers
no.
are loud enough. Like,
Mhm.
And think of the people, like, for example, who live at the Fairmont, where you had, like, sometimes share a
Oh,
room
yeah.
with 3 people,
oh, it's insane.
you know, and
So how do people get in touch with you if they want to participate in studio space or?
that's a great question. They can just email us. We try to respond to everybody. And sometimes, like, people come out to us in the farmer's market or wherever we're doing
Community
something.
nights.
Mhm.
Great place.
And,
Nice.
yeah, we try to.
Because you'd be surprised at the amount of artists. This is part of the reason why we started this podcast as well. Because there's so many artists,
So
people that
many.
are doing fun and interesting things that we just don't know about in this town, and everyone's got a very cool story about how they got here and why they stay here.
No
For
doubt.
So I think the
sure.
fact that you're offering again a space for people to practice their art is it's necessary. Like
Mhm.
it's cool that you got.
No, yeah,
got an
and that's the
opportunity to
unique
do
thing
so.
about Banff as well. Like, for example, you run into someone like Jiwan who used to work at Boston Pizza, and then you realize she leads an orchestra, right? And then
Yeah.
you like have these baristas who used to be like international dancers, and
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like, there's some massive talent out here. It's just, it sucks. Like, when I moved out here, shit, I didn't have even a guitar with me for the first probably good year and a half before I actually went and picked something up. I was like, I just didn't have anywhere to play it.
Mhm.
I didn't have a PC even just to run a simple little rig, to just plug in and jam. So yeah, it's hard when you first move out here when you're a musician, especially for like drummers. Oh my God. Like what, like I see so many posts in like the Bow Valley music groups, just like, hey man, does anybody have a space I can rent for like a couple hours a week just to come jam? Cause it's,
Yeah.
and even then, like even when you're in a band, man, trying to find a jam space out here, it's like we had to move to Canmore to find a jam space because there just wasn't really anything in town that was like, hey, can we come in here and make a insanely large amount of noise with like double kicks and people screaming full tilt as loud as we want? No. Like, we'll pay you. It'll just be after hours. Like, no one will be around. No. Like,
Fair
okay.
enough.
Fair enough,
Speaking of
man. Yeah.
like studio spaces, they're every Wednesday
Nice.
And Saturday.
and Saturday from
Cool.
5 to 7 at St. George's in the Pines upper room.
Cool.
So if anyone wants to use that studio space for an hour, 2 hours, half an hour,
Nice.
they can just go on to oesaarts.com,
Mhm.
and there's a link to studio spaces and a sign-up sheet.
Cool.
So yeah, if anyone's curious or wants to
Thanks
have
for being
space.
efficient. And
Yeah, I know.
also, shout out to Seth
She's got it,
Enriquez
man.
for giving us the space. He was very generous and he just offered it to us free,
That's sweet.
free of money. Yeah.
Nice.
Mm.
It's really
Right on.
Mhm.
You can't beat that.
Well, I think especially when it comes to art, like it is very needed in the community, like you said. And
Yeah.
a lot of people are down to support art, because those
Mhm.
spaces are very much needed. A little bit on to you, Amal. You got a book coming out.
Yay.
What's the book about? When is it coming out?
It is coming out October. I'm not sure when October. What is the book about? You've read it.
I have read it.
The book is called Pretentiously, so it's called Senescence,
Mhm.
which is it's like in biology, senescence. They say it's like the process of aging, but I guess it's more so of like when a flower reaches its peak bloomage, and then from then on until its death. I guess it's when like you hit your 30s and you're like things are going downwards from here.
I feel that.
My
bud.
hair is
Well,
receding.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's
I feel
what.
that one, buddy. Don't you worry about that.
So that's, I guess, what we would call senescence. And I guess I'll just talk about like the first two stories just to give you a glimpse of what the book is. So it's called like narrative collage, which is a method of bringing different things and then finding a thread that connects all of them. And senescence is the name of the first story, and I wrote it because when I moved to Canada, there's this reoccurring theme of the end of the world. Like the world is ending, we're dying, everything, climate change, all of that. And I found that to be very interesting for multiple reasons. Reason number one is it was interesting to me how here in the West, I guess, there's this association with if we're dying, therefore the world is dying. And then I wanted to see if this was unique to this period. And so in senescence, I tried to maybe put in context what the end of the world means historically and how. And then you know what eschatology is? Eschatology is the study of the end of times through religion.
Oh, okay.
And so I tried to do a comparative reading of how all religions thought of the end of times. And then I found that almost every 100 years, somebody comes and tells us that we're all dying and that the world is going to end, which is very interesting because every 100 years when a new generation comes. And so I think we are so afraid of death that we start tying the end of the world with our own end.
Fair.
And then the second theme of the story is, for example, like if you look at birds, I write a little bit about birds, and birds in literature generally are seen as this like beautiful thing. I mean, you have the nightingale in almost every. It was very popular in British literature, and then arguably the oldest fictional story, the Mantaq al-Tuyur, I think it's called. It's about birds, and so birds historically have been like revered. But if you look at birds, they're dinosaurs. There's what we have left from dinosaurs.
That's what the working theory is.
Yeah, it's the
is
working
that
theory. And then
they
if
grew
you think
feathers, yeah.
about that and how they like such a beautiful thing came out of a disaster, let's say, or like an extinction. The story kind of explores, will beauty come out of this? If our end, is it our end? And I think it just tries to deal with the grief of climate change from a hopeful perspective, I guess. Would you agree? I don't know. I haven't read the story for a while. And then the second story is, I think, the reason why the book was published. It's called Ghosts, and it's about intergenerational migration.
Mm-hmm.
So the monarch butterflies, they're species of animals. Have you?
Yep. Oh, yeah. They go to Mexico every year. Yeah, it's wild.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
Hey?
they've been doing it forever. It's wild.
So it's not like when they leave. I think they leave Mexico, and it takes them 4 generations to arrive where they want to be. And it's crazy because you have this butterfly that leaves, dies, and then gives birth to another butterfly that instantly, the moment they're born, all they think about is leaving. And this brought this theory of, you have the term now, intergenerational trauma, and how we carry, where is it? Is it in our bones? Is it in our DNA? And so I tie the migration of monarch butterflies with the Syrian massacre that happened in the 80s or the 70s.
Yeah.
And how also with the hunger winter in, I think it was I forgot where it was. But, and how people can, be born into trauma and carry it without even knowing. And what is the end to that, basically? And that's why I called it ghosts, because somehow it's like a ghost that you carry with you and you pass along to your
For
kids.
sure.
Mhm.
No,
Interesting stuff. My partner's like very, very
No doubt, no
spiritual,
doubt.
and she touches on that too, like intergenerational trauma and how people carry it sometimes, like you said, even without knowing.
Mhm.
So you find that obviously you relate to that plight of kind of the butterfly being
Yeah.
a Syrian, he living here in Canada now. Is that kind of touching on your journey, of
Yeah.
course, right? Like,
For sure. But yeah, I think the story is less about the Syrian thing and more about what does it mean to carry these ghosts and is
Mhm.
there an end to them? Because I also write about, like I said, it's a narrative collage. I write about this mysterious disease called starfish wasting syndrome, where these starfish, just
Oh, right. Yeah. I
all of a
saw about
sudden,
that.
they just disappear.
Yeah, they just start like dying, like huge, like swaths of
Mhm.
them. It's just crazy, dude.
And
Like,
nobody knows why, and the way they die is very interesting because they go into themselves until they disappear,
yeah.
which is exactly how a galaxy explodes. And so you start thinking, what is it? Is this the end of like intergenerational trauma? Is it something we carry until we disappear into nothing? I'm sorry, I tend to go into
no, it's a very
That's the
cool.
point.
It's a very cool thought, honestly. I think climate change and all that stuff is very much
Mm.
painted out as a negative thing,
Mm.
but there's also, I believe, agendas behind painting stuff out negatively and keeping people afraid. Like you said,
Mhm.
afraid of death, afraid of change. Like every
Mhm.
100 years, this is kind of a reoccurring threat that's kind of brought to humanity that we bring upon ourselves in a way.
Exactly, which is crazy
Um,
what you said, like afraid of change. Because I think the way, especially in the West, the way we think of nature is extremely interesting.
mhm,
Because when we think of nature, like no, when people talk about saving nature, nobody is really thinking about deserts, right? We only
Mhm.
think about like green things. Like they talk about how the forest is burning, but nobody thinks about deserts because to us, nature is really not what nature is. It's not something that's dangerous. We only talk about nature as something that is beautiful,
mhm.
which I think in the book I try to kind of like argue against that because the way we think about nature in town, I mean, if you think about Banff to me is similar to like a Disney theme park,
I
right? It's
Oh, big
as
time.
curated and, and then when people talk about preserving nature, which nature's change. And we try to preserve something with its essence is to change. What are you trying to do then? All you're trying to do really is to kind of preserve a nature that preserves you.
preserve your idea of this
Exactly,
space. Yeah.
because you're so afraid of it changing
Mhm.
and therefore you losing it. Because if you read the early explorers who came to Banff or like early literature about Banff, it was a terrifying place.
I could imagine.
You had these people
hell.
who like couldn't sleep at night. They were afraid of the dark. Couldn't deal with like the silence of the place. But then, of course, after we like killed all the wolf population, killed all the bears, managed the park. We call it park management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we talk about preserving it. What are we trying to preserve? Jesus, I should not be as controversial. I used to work as an environmentalist. Maybe I should.
Well, honestly,
I'll
it's a
sit
very
back.
interesting question.
Well, like we say, the views of our guests are not that of the Overheard podcast, so you can say whatever you want.
Exactly,
As long as
yeah.
it doesn't violate terms of service of YouTube
Like,
and
I'll ask you a
Twitch,
question.
can
What do you
pretty much
think?
say whatever you want.
Oh, that's sweet. Okay, whatever. What do you think? What is nature to you? Let me ask you that.
Nature for me is untouched by man. Is places where I can go, walk to,
Mm.
And touch it.
and touch it.
I
Yeah.
don't want to be the one to touch
Honestly,
it first, he says.
To touch on what you said earlier, is I feel like these days, especially living in Banff National Park, a lot of the people that are screaming out "save nature" are the ones that tend to use it for profit.
Sure.
Which is one thing that I'm personally against. I don't believe that the
Mhm.
nature should be used to sell more things or to get more people through the gates. Like
Mm.
nature is meant to be untouched, and like we
Mhm.
need a place to live, we need roads. I
Mhm.
don't know. It's kind of like
If I may,
like that story you said earlier of
Uh,
going down to the basement,
Oh, God.
like
if I may touch on that, like there's this also notion of untouched nature, which I think like I don't, nothing against what you said, but
no, please.
it's also kind of interesting because if you think about it, I mean, indigenous people have lived here for years
Yes.
and they have touched nature. And so when we say untouched nature, we only mean untouched by Europeans, right? Because it's
Okay.
only when Europeans touch nature that I don't know what happens,
Mhm.
this happens. And we call it development or progress, I guess. And so
I
um
almost went backwards here.
And then I wrote my thesis about this actually because there's this now people kind of advertise this notion of, oh, we need to return to this untouched nature. But no, I think we need to return to nature being touched the right way.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. I think just our interpretation of nature and its importance in Western culture, I think that's where it's kind of lost. Whereas like people are suffering from depression and anxiety and all these mental health disorders that might be cured if you spend a little less time on Instagram and a little more time outside, and you know, or getting
sure.
sunlight first thing in the morning instead of getting blue light from your phone. Like I think people don't see nature as to what it is as far as an offering
No
from
doubt.
the earth
Oh yeah,
that has therapeutic properties. Like
that's such a
I feel
beautiful
like
point. Yeah.
art and nature kind of are one and the same, and that they offer some of the same positives.
I agree. And I think one of the things that I really love that because one of the things that we lost with dealing with nature is the spirituality of it. Like, you know, nowadays we deal mostly with facts and data, and you have all these scientists coming to you telling you why we're going to die and how, when we're going to die. And so when you remove that spiritual element from it, you care about nature the way you care about an equation, really more than like you care about something that is alive.
But on that point too, like technology is getting to a place where these things are being measurable. I listened to a podcast, I think it was Sean Ryan or something, and he was talking to like these FBI remote viewers where they're like,
they
What
just
is
watch
that?
people.
so remote viewing is like a form of lucid dreaming where you can kind of like predict the future, predict what's happening in other places. And they've found scientifically that like 1% of the population, which is a huge amount of people, actually possess this ability.
No doubt.
Like it's insane. It's actually measurable. They're measuring it
That's
with
wild.
science now. Anyways, that's a whole nother.
So wait, 1% of the population can predict the future?
Like yeah, predict the future. Like remote viewing, they can tell what's going on to within a certain like percentage, and there's like a test that they can do where they just like ask you, I think it's like elements of a scene, but nothing man-made. So it's like mountains, whatever, and they're meant to like come up with a scene in their head, and then based on the picture that they have pre-selected, like some people get up to like 95, 98% of the elements of the picture correct.
Wow.
And these are the types of people that can do remote viewing. And like, so I guess it's crazy that these spiritual things that, you know, people like you
Wow.
100 years ago, you probably would have got burned for
Yeah.
is actually like, it
No doubt.
actually could be like an innate thing that humans all possess. Which like, I don't know, it blew my mind, honestly.
Wow.
But isn't that sad that we only start like agreeing with things when science tells us that, oh, now it's, you know, data
Right.
can prove it, therefore it exists. But like, what about before? What about like the 1,000 year of ridiculing people who believe that way?
That's the other side of the coin. I think that's very misrepresented for sure. And I think my partner being in the spiritual realm, like I'm kind of faced with that a lot for sure. Because I'm like, I'm a bit more of a let's get data guy, you know what I mean? And then I'm
Give me
like,
that-
oh,
I want the data sheets.
right?
Yeah, I
And
want
then
the data sheet.
So I go up to Nat and I'm like, oh my God, listen to this. And she's like, I told you.
What's that? What's that
Just
thing?
like,
Proof or it didn't happen?
No,
No, I'm just kidding.
now you're putting me on the spot. One question I really wanted to ask both of you, actually, G1, for artistically speaking, if you had any advice for any young artist coming up or something that you wish you'd known sooner on your artistic journey, what would it be?
Know and value your time.
Okay.
I have not taken this piece of advice in the most recent months, but I'm hoping to actually materialize that in my actions moving forward, because I remember I was in an orchestra rehearsal and my friend Pat was so annoyed that the rehearsal and the concert was being delayed by like hours and hours and hours.
Oh yeah.
And we're just like waiting there for our personnel manager to like call us to like practice, and he's just like, we need to like get paid for this time. Because like we're not being accounted for this time. We did not know that this was going to be
No doubt.
delayed by this long, so we need to tell them that we deserve compensation. And I was just like, no, like it's gonna be awkward. I don't want to push them. I want them to invite us back to play for them again. And
No doubt.
he's said, no, don't do that. Your time is more valuable than the amount that you're spending. on this little project that you could be compensated for elsewhere, and other people will value your time
Mhm.
and they'll treat you well. And I think that all artists should internalize that, because it's so easy to waste your time. It's so easy to be taken advantage of, especially
Good
when
point.
you're kind of starting out and you don't know what you're doing. So
For sure. I think like the naive person just getting into it wants to be giving and wants to be pleasing to people. It's giving you an opportunity where maybe like people know that and like they take advantage of that fact that maybe you're new, maybe you don't know, maybe you should be compensated for that time. So great advice. Know your worth, I guess, is a big thing to take from that.
Know thy worth. Do you want?
I love it. Same question to you, Amal. If you had some advice that you've kind of picked up along the way that you wish you knew sooner when it comes to being a writer or photographer, like we haven't even touched on photography yet, but
I guess I'm not sure actually. I'd say we were talking about this the other day. Remember when I asked you, me and Juan have the wackiest conversations ever. Where I was just like, do you think beauty can come without death? Or like without destruction? And I think I'll ask you that because I was looking at the mountains and I was like, as beautiful as they are, I mean, imagine the amount of destruction that was caused by them when they were, because it was two land masses colliding. And I was thinking about that in the context of art. And when you create art, like for me, art is sacrifice. You have to sacrifice something for something beautiful to come out of it. You have to risk something, and to me, I was, of course, guilty of that, of like half-assing, like, oh, I can do this. I can just write for half an hour. But I think you really need to understand that if you want your art to be successful, you need to sacrifice a lot of things for it to be fruitful. But I might be
no
wrong.
doubt.
Man, don't listen to me, kids.
Sacrifice what exactly? Like, do you have anything in mind?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, why put me on the spot like that?
great
Ooh,
question. Thank
There
you.
you go.
it's your mind.
Sacrifice what? I think. Oh, bruh. Okay, I think we, nowadays you have these like, I think. Oh boy. Okay, I'm gonna go there. I think this
Please.
culture is being like kind of plagued with this idea of, like, oh, love yourself, you go girl, never change. Like those.
I would agree with you there for
I
sure.
mean, it's crazy
like
because
coddled youth almost.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah.
yeah, like you
Like-
mentioned, hardship. You need hardship in order to come out the other side and have a growing experience. Like there's a lot of, I feel like this might not be true for everyone. I don't like to paint everyone with one brush, but a lot of kids or people that were brought up that where they could do no wrong in their parents' eyes, or have never felt a defeat, or have never had a loss, right? Like they've been coddled to a point where they haven't had that tough experience. Like, and you can just kind of tell in the way that they react to a small loss or like being a sore loser is so prevalent these days where everyone has to be a winner. It's
Yeah.
like,
For sure. And I think, yeah, it's very toxic because to me, that's how I know if somebody's an artist or not. If somebody continues doing their art after they failed because they physically cannot stop,
yeah,
that's how you know it's an artist.
Oh, big time.
But if somebody who fails and then they're like, yeah, I'm done with this. Well, maybe it's good that you failed then, If you historically look at people who wrote, they hated it.
for sure. You're not going to write a slam dunk first one.
Yeah, like
that's
nobody
not
was
going to
just
happen.
like, this is awesome. They hate it. And like if, when we think about writers, we often think about writers in the traditional sense. But if you think about the most popular writers ever are actually writers who never wrote anything, like Socrates, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha. There are people who were
And a lot of them popularized after their passing, not during
Exactly.
their lives,
But
right?
then what's interesting, if we look at them specifically, every time they were asked to write or they were asked to preach or whatever, they actually said, I don't want to. Moses said, send someone else. Muhammad said, I don't know how to read, get away from me. Even the guy who wrote Beowulf, he was just like, I don't want to do this. No, it's
Nice.
it's like heavy. Art is heavy and you need to like allow it to leave you and hurt you. Jesus, I sound horrible, but
No, that was awesome.
Yeah,
That was
dude.
sweet.
Nice.
But I think, yeah, that's maybe the sacrifices. People are not willing to be hurt by their art, maybe.
Which is another beautiful thing about like the traditionalism of art, that you are the conduit of art. You are the shaper, you are the molder, but you are not the art itself. It's
Do you not think so?
Like you're the channel.
You're the
for
channel.
it.
It's not about necessarily your struggle. It's not necessarily about your interpretation. It's about how you honor the art itself. It's hard to distinguish again because we've confused the two, the art and the artist.
Mhm.
So making a distinction between the person who's expressing the art and the art itself is hard. So it's hard to describe what I'm trying to get at.
Do you know Yeats, the poet? Where
I've
he
heard-
wrote, "Can we tell the dancer from the dance?"
I've-
You know, and what he meant by that, like, can we distinguish the art from the artist? And I think, like, when I look at you and you as well, actually, like, just by looking at you, you can tell you're an artist. I kid you not. Like, you know, you have that aura around you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that's to me when somebody is an artist, is that when they are an embodiment of their art.
Mhm.
That I have this friend, her name, you know, Natalie
Mhm.
Rice. She's an amazing poet.
Nice.
You spend 2 minutes with her and you're like, this girl is a poet.
We did Shawayne
Mm.
a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
and it's like as soon as he walks in the room, you know
Yeah,
this
you're
guy's a
like,
poet.
oh yeah,
Like
big time.
he
Oh yeah.
speaks in poetry, like it
Mhm.
just comes out of him. And
Mhm.
I think it's to touch a little bit about what you're saying, separating the artist from the art is a very interesting concept. Are you represented by the art that you put out, or vice versa? Like
Oh.
that's a very interesting question. I'm sure we could dive into that.
What do you think?
I don't know. I think I'm not the most artistic person. So I don't know. Like art does kind of flow through me in different ways. I feel like I'm artistic in the way. I don't know. That's a really tough one. It's a really tough question.
Oh man, that's tough.
Do you think there should even be a distinction between the art and the artist?
Well, no,
I
because
mean,
if-
that depends. Like for me, it's a little different because you're usually in a band setting. For me, it's just like you're always collaborating with other people, right? So that's more of like an amalgamation of like
Mm.
just different ideas and like shit that needs to come out. You know what I mean? It's like I don't know. That's a tough one.
well, I think it comes down to like how guarded and how willing you are to release your art.
Mm.
Like that kind of base how much it defines you in a sense.
Yeah,
Mm.
totally.
Yeah,
Because like if you're doing art in a way that's like we mentioned earlier, there's those two sides, right? Like the Rick Rubin way where I don't care about the audience, I'm just letting what comes out of me go.
Mhm.
But then there's the other side of caring about the audience and will people like this? Is this what people want to consume? And I think that's probably like a pendulum of where do you fall in that, how much your art represents you, I guess. Like
Yeah.
but that also comes with why are you doing art in the first place? Are you doing art for recognition? Or are you doing it to get your emotions out? So I think that's another huge thing today is people just doing art, like you said earlier, for the sake of being an artist, to put a funny hat on and sit in a coffee shop, right? Like,
Oh my God.
Yeah,
you
I
have a
mean-
good memory.
I mean, that's just part of I think like the whole kind of like Instagram, TikTok guitarist. It's like you
Mm.
can just like you don't really have to put in. It's not like back in the day where it was like you had to actually like work your ass off for anybody to even know who you were. Like let alone like in your hometown, let alone across the country. So
that's what I mean.
It
Are
was
you
just
doing
like-
art for it to be seen, or are you doing art to get it out of your, like, to get those feelings?
well,
out
I
of
think
you?
there's two kinds of people that I think that's a different story on its own. Like I think there's plenty of people that are out there just to chase clout and fame.
Mm,
And that's in any industry, man. It's going to be the
Mhm.
same. Like
for sure.
whether you're in the music industry or in the arts industry, or it's just going to be that way, right? Like
Mm,
there's always going to be shit again. There's always going to be people just like faking it
mm.
until they make it, right?
Mhm.
So I think that is a completely different story than someone that does it because they love to do it, right? Like
for sure.
for me, I've always played in heavy metal bands. They generally around the board do not make any money at all whatsoever. You're lucky if you get a couple drink tickets most of the time for coming out, right? So,
It's
hey,
a
thanks for
passion.
bringing $20,000 worth of gear to bring in the house down. That was great. But yeah, here's 3 drink tickets. Like, there's 4 of us in the band. It's like, oh, sorry, that's just what we give the bands. It's like, oh, I've had it before, dude. Five
Oh, I
piece
know.
band, 3 drink tickets. I'm like, thanks, man.
We'll share one.
Sorry for inconveniencing you for the night. Like those kind of like those people are doing it because they love it, right? Like
Mm,
it's that's a whole different story. But
mhm.
that's where I'm at on it.
So back to art a little bit. What do your creative processes look like? Do you guys like say for if you're writing a piece of music or you're writing a story?
Mm.
What is your creative process like? Do you dedicate time in your day to be like, I'm going to do art from 6 to 8, or do you just kind of do it when it strikes you? What does your process look like?
Good.
I'm gonna be very honest.
Please.
I don't have one.
No?
Not at all.
Joanne is very humble. She's
no-
also a poet. I don't know if you know this.
What?
She writes poetry. She does.
No, I don't.
But I have a question then. How did you come about to write the song about George Bush?
Oh,
Tell us that process. Sorry. I'll tell this funny story.
Thank you for
So Jiwon
elaborating.
came
like-
to me once and she's like, oh, I finally wrote an original piece. I was like, oh, amazing. You want to perform it? But it was at a community night, right? It was our first community night. People are sitting there, sipping their coffee, having like a cozy time. And then Jiwon starts, George Bush, she starts talking about George Bush. And I was just like, what? Where did this come from?
Oh my god!
You want to tell us a little bit about that?
oh, thank you.
Didn't put her on the spot at all.
Yeah,
Not at
not at
all.
all.
No, but it's very funny because they do happen like more spontaneously, these processes. But it's not a process. You start writing things down, and the things that come to your mind, little details, little I don't know, things that you remember, small things that inspire you. Just feelings that you experience throughout the day.
George Bush inspires you?
George Bush does not inspire me. My anger towards him inspires me.
Did that time.
And I remember that there was a period of time during the COVID-19 pandemic where my friend and I, who I came out here with, we just watched press conferences all day long. It's a
Oh
very
yeah, it
sad
was bad. I did for a while too, and I'm like, this is horrible. Why are we doing this? There's nothing else to do though.
I know, and it just gets you so angry. And I wrote another song specifically about just like the ridiculousness and the contradiction that exists in the world from both sides of the political spectrum. The way that we perceive things, we're just very like dually minded creatures. But yeah, it's just something that really I felt very passionate about. The wars. I was born kind of in like the middle of a very crucial geopolitical shift in the early 2000s. And it's something that we don't really talk about as much anymore. And in my bio, I mentioned that I write about injustice and hierarchy. And there are ones that are obvious, ones that we can perceive very openly in the present day, but there are also ones that we've tended to push aside.
Like what?
I think war is something that we just don't want to conceptualize. It's so brutal and so disgusting.
I think you're very right in that. Like, even with the Russia-Ukraine thing, like, it was very hard on the nose in the media for the first, week? And then now it's just kind of, it's just going on. No one really cares. It's just kind of happening. We saw that missile on our, like, some people are still, like, the people that are still talking about it are very few, which I think it's a crazy fact that this can all just be happening. And we're talking about other things. You know what I mean? Like,
Just so far removed from it, right? Like you just don't think about it in your day-to-day life, so it's not. If it's
Yeah.
not jammed in your face by media, you're not gonna.
It's the kid in the basement that you
Yeah.
have to go down and beat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like it's it's easy to become distracted by like the big flashy thing, like a presidential debate, or which side are you going to take, even though they're both going to spend billions of dollars on military warfare and technology
Yeah.
to kill innocent people. So that bothers me.
for sure. I think, it's money is the maker and breaker of all things in this world, unfortunately.
No
A lot
doubt.
of injustice goes in chasing it, yet it's a necessary evil. Without it, you can't really accomplish any good goals neither. Like, we're talking about getting grants and stuff. Like, you can't really do any good without getting some funding or something in the first place, right? So it's a very interesting kind of place that we're at in the world, I think.
For sure.
But yeah, creative process derived from anger, I guess.
There we go. There we go.
There we go.
Who are we? I'm telling them you should hate your art, and you're like, you should be angry. Good
That's
advice.
all right.
Well, no, I think that's where probably the best pieces come from, because that's where it's the most meaningful, and like you have those strong feelings tied into the art. So
I think it was
Okay.
Borges who said no lessons can be derived from joy, and that like only sorrow teaches us things. It's unfortunate, but
But there's always hope in the room.
here I am. My name means hope. so-
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that
Sorry,
worked out
sorry.
great.
That's awesome.
I see what you did there.
Thanks,
Yeah,
thanks.
I see what he
Dare
did there.
you.
And what about you, Amal? What is your creative process like? Do you set aside time to write every day? Do you?
Oh, I
is
don't.
your photography tied into your writing as well, or do you
That's a
link
great
the two?
question. Okay. I don't know. I think for me, writing process is mostly reading. I am so afraid that my thought is not supported. Like I feel like how do I dare say something and write it without knowing that somebody else is thinking it for some reason? So I will go and read. I will read a lot. I will read for hours and then maybe write one sentence and so forth. So
That must make a very long process.
I don't know. I think writing is it's a very different form because with music, it's immediate. You know, like you play, you hear. With painting, it's the same. With writing, like, what are you doing? You know,
It's
like
true. It's not a super immediate feedback.
no.
It takes a long time to accomplish
Some
a
people
project.
until after they die. You know,
True.
like and yeah. But with my photography, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I mean, photography etymologically means to write with light. Like photo means light, and graphy means writing. So I think photography and writing are basically similar, using the same tools, just the language that is different.
Very cool.
And I do try to, with photography, to kind of emulate what I do with writing, which is to have these like narrative collages. I kind of, yeah, I don't understand when like someone takes one picture and posts it. That's like when you post the end of a musical piece. Like, to me, it's the process. Like, show me how you got there. Show me like a collage of images that will give me a story. Because if you're gonna write with light, might as well tell a story with it. And so
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying I've achieved that, but I do try to do that with my photography. Sure.
That's a pretty cool vision.
No doubt.
It's a very good analogy, writing with light.
No
So you're a
doubt.
writer in more sense than one.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool
Oh
stuff.
God! Thank you.
Oh, this is awesome. I feel like we got real deep in
Are
there
you a
today.
photographer?
No. Like, I don't know. The most artistic thing that I would do, I'd say, is probably snowboarding, is where I kind of find my artistic expression, just like
Mm.
seeing my canvas and doing
See,
what I
I mean,
want
it is
with
interesting.
you
Our
know?
definition of art, because if you ask someone what is art, I bet you nobody can answer you.
No.
Because
It's
historically, we've been
subjective.
looking at art from like a Western lens,
Mhm.
and especially music. Like, when we look at cultures like indigenous cultures or Persian cultures, where the main medium of art was poetry, not music.
Yeah.
If you read historical books, they tell you that these cultures didn't start producing art until later when they got introduced to Western cultures. But that's only depends on how you define art,
Mhm.
right? And only recently we started like thinking of cooking as art. Right?
True.
Yeah.
Mm.
Good point. Good
Mm.
point. That's wild.
So you might
What
be
is
an
art?
artist and not know.
Yeah,
it.
maybe.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we got to move on to some posts real quick.
We do.
We got
We
some.
do.
I don't know if you guys watched the show, but we go through our favorite
Mhm.
posts of the week. We do have a couple of updates on some kind of newsy stuff that we try to cover as well. So we're gonna cut to that. First one we got is an update on the Jasper wildfire complex. You want to?
Heck yeah, bro.
So we just got the visual here. This is just some crazy snapshots from around the town of Jasper. But some good news. So this is kind of read off the Jasper National Park Facebook page. This is an update as of 5 p.m. August 24th. This is day 34. The wildfire status is being held. Good news, overnight parts of Jasper receive up to 30.5 millimeters of rain. Rain was meant to continue into the night with cooler weather. So some residents have actually been allowed back into the town. They're
Cool.
opening some stuff back up. So some residents, thankfully, getting back into their homes.
Nice.
We're seeing some opening stuff. Crazy how the first thing to open, though, was the tourist attractions. I thought that was a little bit wild that you weren't allowed to go anywhere but the tourist attractions.
Don't get me
No doubt.
started on that.
Pretty wild stuff.
Mhm.
But good news, at least on the Jasper front, right?
for sure.
Getting people back into their homes. They're opening some like trails and stuff just outside of the
Oh,
town
nice, cool.
site. So at least people that are back there can recreate and get some outside time
Cool.
amongst what's happening. So at least
Well,
some good news.
Going to be able to have a little more recreation time out on Banff Ave, aren't we?
We are, yes.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, so the next one here, Matt, you want to read that one out? It's a little bit of a...
All right, so it says Banff Town Council passed a bylaw to rescind the previous direction and to have the annual pedestrian zone in summer. Bylaw was required as part of the process set out by the Alberta Municipal Government Act in response to a petition on August 12th vote. So the pedestrian zone will remain in place until the September long weekend and then removed following Labor Day. This will allow Banff Ave to be reopened to vehicles as soon as traffic signals are reset to accommodate traffic and pedestrian crossings. Some businesses may have room to retain some sidewalk seating, they said also.
Interesting points. So it was all meant to be down today, 27th, initially. I've heard from businesses, same thing. They got letters from the town of Banff saying patios need to be down. Now, again, they've went back on the decision, decided to keep it open for the long weekend. But it seems to me like there's only a few businesses that have their patios up. Whether that was done purposefully or not, I can't be the judge. But yeah, if you read between the lines, it's pretty wild. If it was done in collusion with the town of Banff, that's pretty insane to me. But yeah, it's not really my call to say whether it was or wasn't. So at least we'll have a couple more days for those that are pro Pet Zone. Go out and enjoy it.
Yeah.
I don't want to dip too much into that debate again. I've already
Nope, heck
we've made
no.
our points. And again, I don't want to put you guys on the spot unless you guys do want to talk about it. Like,
Oh, I mean, what I
Briefly,
noted-
we are
briefly.
running out of time.
Yeah.
Just to keep in mind.
Oh my god. Okay, I'll
We've
be very
spent
quick.
like 6 months on this, so
I know, yeah.
I'll be very quick. What is interesting I found here is that the choices were only vote yes or no. You know, and there's no in between. Like for me, I
Yes.
know it's ironic as an Arab
Yeah.
because we often get labeled as extremists, but Western culture is they're so extremist in their decisions. Like, why wasn't there a middle ground? Why wasn't it like open from like?
I fully agree with you there, right? Because a
Mhm.
lot of, like myself, I voted no because I have very strong stance about Parks Canada land being used for business.
Mhm.
I'm not against the pedestrian zone. I
Mhm.
would love the idea of a pedestrian zone that's not used for selling $30 burgers and having
Mhm.
people intoxicated running up and down Banff Ave. You know what I mean? Like that's green
Mhm.
space meant for Canadians, not meant for business to propagate their agendas.
Yeah.
yeah, no doubt.
But yeah.
We'll move on.
Anyways, we can. We,
Don't get Dan all riled
Yeah.
up over
We-
here.
Again, I don't want to get you on. Well, either. It seems like maybe she is, but it's all right. We can agree to disagree and still be neighbors, right? That's why we want this
For
show.
sure.
That's why we want to portray all
Mhm.
thoughts. Like I was chatting with my neighbor the other day, and he's like a very, very yes vote, and was like telling me why I was wrong, and I'm like, well, like at some points I do agree, but like the bottom line for me was the bottom line, and that's why I
Yeah.
made the choice that I made.
I wish they had a middle ground. For
I
sure.
I for sure,
Mhm.
you know. Anyways,
Anyway.
moving on.
Moving on to some
Some-
absolute gold.
Oh wow.
There you go. So this one reads, seeing a cyber, I think probably most people have seen this meme by now, but seeing a Cybertruck in the wild is fun because only 3,000 have been sold. So it's like, oh wow, there's our town's biggest dipshit. Look at him go.
And this one had a caption on Overheard that the boys are back in town,
Oh,
which we haven't really had many of.
We've had a few this summer that I've seen a few pretty creative ones.
This
but
week
we've only
was
had-
pretty,
we've only had a few on the podcast this summer.
pretty slow on the old Overheard page. But yeah, keep those boys are back in town posts coming. I feel like the oil riggers were at the golf course not long ago, and I didn't see any posts about it.
No.
Get this, I was playing golf at the golf course, and I got held up. There's a bunch of groups on 18. These oil rig dudes were playing a match for $30,000, and they had to replay the final hole twice because supposedly they were tied, and held up every single other group in the back.
That's
And the golf course is
stupid.
like, sorry, man, like they're oil rig dudes. Like we can't, like they spend so much here at the hotel that we can't tell them anything.
Oh,
We're just
what?
like,
What?
That's why.
could you imagine?
It's crazy.
Could you imagine playing a? Yeah, I don't. Anyways, it blew my mind. These people are out there doing this.
Jesus.
Moving on.
Well, here you go, Dan. Let me have this one. Big shout out.
Yo, big shout out to Shay O'Brien with Max Mobile Tire.
No doubt.
Really helped this person out of a jam. They got jammed up on the Highway 1 with a inverted tire, it looks like. Called up Shay within the hour he was there getting them fixed up. I know I use Shay for my personal vehicle needs. Give him a shout. Max Mobile Tire. If you got any vehicle repairs, he does like diagnostics. He does all types of stuff on site.
Your boy.
Yeah, great local dude.
Oh yeah, Shay's
Yeah,
awesome.
always
Oh,
there
yeah.
to give advice and help people with car trouble. So we want to give him
No doubt.
his shout out for his good deed of the day.
No doubt. All right. Well, you want to read this one, Dan, or can you read that tiny?
Yeah, I can probably read that tiny. No, I can't read that tiny.
Um,
August 29th, so in a couple of days,
Yep.
The Ghost Walks are having a fundraiser. If you can read the specifics on it there, I'm a little too far for that one.
So it says, well, there aren't really any specifics other than the link. It just says on the 29th, they're doing a charity tour. 50% of the proceeds through Rogers Birdies for Kids. And there's a link here.
Yes, so they're helping kids with disabilities. So
Yep.
there is a link. It's on the Overheard page. Go and check them out. They're doing Ghost Walks on August 29th. I was in contact with the owner of the company today. She said they got tons of room left.
Yep.
Trying to raise some funds for kids with disabilities. So if
Find
you
them
wanna,
on Facebook at Banff the Canmore Ghost Walks as well.
That's
yes.
awesome.
And they will be a future guest. We'll be talking ghost walks. We're actually going to go do a ghost walk, and then we're going to come talk about it on the show. It's gonna be
Spooky.
sick.
Wow.
Yeah,
I want to see some ghosts, dude.
I'm pretty pumped. Well, Banff's got a lot of history. I'm sure there's I know at the Grizzly House we have a few supposed entities that still spook the place up.
Oh.
I had a weird experience there the other night actually. I was closing. I was in there by
What do you mean
myself.
by weird? What happened?
So I was like, I just started closing the restaurant. So some nights I'm there, everyone's leaving. I'm still kind of closing and doing my thing. And I'm just like on my phone going through my checklist of like all the stuff that I got to do. And there's these like plexiglass dividers that are kind of still up. And I just saw like something like flashed in the plexi, like as if someone walked behind me. But like I didn't see, I was in the building by myself. So yeah, it kind of gave me the chills. And yeah, but anyways,
Oh, geez.
moving on.
Jesus.
Go check out the ghost walks. They're sick.
Moving on. So this one was good. This is another, I think, lost dog or found dog post.
Yeah, this was sick. So someone originally posted just the photo on the right and was like, "Yo, your dog's in my yard," like, but it's just the rear end. They couldn't really see. And then our boy Josh with the hilarious comment, if you want to read it.
Because I'm glad you got that second photo. Without that, I'm sure anyone would recognize it. OP Slasher has been claimed. It was so good. I had to leave it in. Nice one, Josh. Nailed it, buddy.
Yeah, good one, buddy.
Well, on to some more, I guess, local slash.
Yeah, this was someone just kind of poking fun at the housing crisis. It reads, "I just learned that if a hermit crab finds a new shell that's too big, it will wait for other hermit crabs who need new shells to gather, and then they will organize themselves side by side and trade shells. I'm pissed that the crabs have a better housing market than we do."
It's
So,
true, though, dude.
Poking fun at our housing crisis. Have you guys ever had any issues with the housing crisis?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh God, I think
We
that's
could get into that.
I think that's a whole episode on its own right there.
I would agree. Yeah, housing crisis. Hopefully, we'll
Oh.
get some.
We haven't seen a post about this in a while. I forgot that we had this one in here.
Which one?
The bags, man. We haven't had bags since like our first or second episode.
Well, actually, we made some. We had some bag posts last week.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I guess
Different
yeah.
kinds of
different kind of bag. But yeah, this one reads: At my staff com, we have too many reusable grocery bags. Should we throw them out, or is there somewhere that we can bring them? So we went from having like too many plastic bags to now just having way too many of these things. It's like, well, what the fuck do you do with them? Because no one ever brings one with them.
Yeah, the reusable
I have
bags
like
are
4
now just
drawers of
like-
them. I have like 4 drawers of them and like 4 of them just stuffed full of more of them, like up in the closet. It's just like, it's insane, man. I gotta have like 300 of these.
So the point of this
I'm not even
post is if you are like Matt and you have 300 of these bags, bring them down to the food rescue.
Oh,
Food
smart.
rescue is where you want to get rid of these things. They're using them. They use them to hand out food that's going to go to waste.
Yep.
So it's also a good cause. You're helping food not go to waste. You're helping people.
No doubt.
Also, the thrift store takes them.
Thrift store takes them as well.
Cool.
Sick.
to
So
know.
there you go. You got 2 outlets.
2.
So if you have 300 like Matt, you can give 150 to the food rescue. 150.
I don't know if I want to count them. Dan, you count them. I'll you divvy them up. I'll go take them down.
Fair.
We'll make an afternoon out of it. It'll be fun. I'll sit here and drink beer, and you can count bags, and then I'll take them down there when we're done.
My bag counting days are over, brother.
Oh God. Speaking of which, the next 2 memes are these ones definitely hit home. Do you?
I would say so. Maybe
you
back
just
in the
looked
day.
at me like, why are you looking at me?
I was like,
All right, so this one's a little Groku here. It says, "Happy Sunday. I'm not an alcoholic. Alcoholics go to meetings. I'm a drunk. We go to parties. Welcome to Banff.
welcome to Banff, baby.
Oh,
We
yeah.
touched on this earlier. Very, very much a Banff mentality. There are Alcoholics Anonymous meetings in Banff for those that need it.
Yep.
I know we're poking fun at the thing, but something I attended. There's no shame in it.
No shame.
Yeah, there's like, I think there's one every single day in the Bow Valley between Banff and Canmore.
Wow.
Jeez, nice.
So if you're out there, you're struggling with alcoholism, you
Crazy.
feel like you need a hand, don't be shy to reach out to myself personally or the podcast. Give us a shout, point you in the right direction. I'd love to help a homie get sober, actually. It's pretty awesome.
Well,
But yeah, if you don't feel you need it, go out, have fun, enjoy yourself, rip it up. Like,
yeah, maybe. Well,
if you can do it responsibly,
maybe
go
not. Maybe not this bad, but I know we've all been there. So it's Stewie saying. So it's Stewie as the meme, and then it just says, when you're pouring your 47th drink of the night and you have to be at work in 2 hours, just Stewie pouring a martini saying, I'll be fine.
Oh my God, been there, dude.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like 2 hours, man. Maybe we don't. Well, I mean, we're already awake, and it's my day's already ruined. We might as well just. It's not going to get any worse. One beer at 47 ain't going to make it any worse.
Yeah, I'm glad this is not me anymore, man. Holy, I've done a few shifts in that.
I've had some
that
pretty
state.
rough mornings back in the old early mid-20s there, where I was just like, I haven't slept yet. I have to go to work in 45 minutes. That's not good at all. But
Oh, to be young again. Don't miss it. one bit.
oh, to be young
Well,
again.
you're young.
Jesus.
Yeah, I guess. I feel like I call like my partying days like my younger days.
I see.
You know? I feel like
Yeah.
I'm matured now,
Good for you.
but not really. Not really at all. Well, thank you so much for coming in, guys. This has been awesome. Love diving into Oesa and about
Okay.
your kind of personal philosophies yourselves. This has been a great little chat.
Thank
I
you.
feel like we've touched like 2 questions and we just kind of ran with it. So that was awesome.
Sorry
This-
about that. I felt
No,
like I
this
went
is
on.
more of the style that we like, you know.
Yeah, no doubt.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come in.
Thank you for
Don't
having
forget
us.
about the community night that's tonight at the HI, 6 p.m.
Right.
Still got plenty of time to make it.
Mhm.
Go check out Oesa on Instagram. Go check out their website if you want to sign up for some studio time.
Mhm.
You can find your links personally as well to your Instagrams if you want to give them a follow.
Mm.
We're looking very much forward to picking up a copy of your book when it
Oh,
does
thank
come
you.
out. Because now, after talking to you, I got it. Like,
Gotta read it now.
you've piqued my curiosity to
You
a
guys are
point of
so
no
sweet.
return.
And I have to come to your shows with your cello playing rock music or
Yeah,
whatever.
no doubt. No
You guys
doubt.
got any shows coming up?
Do you have
No,
any-
no, we
What?
haven't
On
been doing
hiatus,
much
eh?
lately.
Do you
Yeah.
want to come play at the farmer's market tomorrow?
No, I don't have a cello.
You can play anything.
No.
You want to come play at a community
No.
night?
You don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear what I play. Trust me.
It's very
It's,
unique.
well, it's
taste.
not. It might not be that you don't want to hear it. It's just that not a single other fucking person at that event would want to hear it. They'd be like, "Get this fucking guy off stage right now! Like, get that 8-string out of his hand. We're not doing it today."
Can I find you on Spotify or somewhere?
No, nothing on Spotify right now, but we're working on stuff
Okay.
in the works.
Yeah,
Then
man, it's
I'll
very
find a way to
mysterious
find you.
about his
Mm,
projects right
mm.
now.
I mean,
you know
his
what
name
I'm
is
kind of in
Owen
between
something.
everything. I'm kind of like in between 2 bands and DJing, and
Mhm. I think DJing's been more your focus lately.
yeah, I'm just old as shit, and I played a lot of shows. I'm
There's
getting
nothing-
tired.
Well, that's called experience, man.
Yeah.
It's called wisdom, brother.
Wisdom, yeah.
Wisdom. So next week, we're going to be touching on sobriety a little bit again. Our buddy Alex Carpentier. I don't know if you guys know him or not.
Oh yeah, French Alex.
Yeah, French
I didn't
Alex
know he was
coming
coming on.
by.
Let's go.
I used to work with Alex years and years ago, and we were both still very much in the party scene at the Elkin Oarsman.
He used to live down the hall here.
Yeah, man. So a
No,
lot
I got some stories.
I'm sure we're going to touch into the wild times, but we're going to be talking about kind of getting our lives together. The main thing about Alex, what he's done since getting sober, he's ridden every single day at Lake Louise that they've been open for the last 2 seasons. So
Yeah.
like 230 days
Yeah, it's wild.
each year for the last 2 years. Recently completed the Banff triple, or no, it's the quad.
The quad. Yeah.
So that's like Tunnel, Sulphur, Cascade,
Oh, yeah.
Rundle,
Oh,
all
wow.
back to back in a day.
Yeah.
So he's
Can I
been
see a
doing.
picture of his legs or something? This
I
I mean,
honestly, he's been doing these crazy feats in the winter too. He just started touring and like took touring, like that ski touring, like took it like a duck to water and did like Amner, Couloir, and a bunch of big objectives this year.
Oh, big time.
Wow.
So very, very stoked to dive into that with him next week. But thank you guys so much for coming in.
Thank
And
you
we
for
look forward to
having
working
us.
with
Yeah,
Wes
heck
and you
yeah.
guys more. Like, please
it was fun.
let's collab. I feel like we can talk some more. We can do
let's do it.
full more
Absolutely.
episodes. So yeah,
Yeah.
looking forward to chatting with you guys again.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. We're gonna cut this off. Like every week. See you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday. Bing, bing, bing.
Oh, you guys are